movie that we did our research on was The Big Short. It was directed by Adam McKay and was based on the original novel by Michael Lewis. The Big Short was again based on the novel by Michael Lewis of the same name. It is a drama comedy and was released on December 11th of 2015. The movie and the book alike both go into the financial crisis that occurred in the late 2000s. It tries to explain each part of the financial crisis and uses the variety of terms and definitions in order to help further that explanation. It has disruptions within the film called interludes, which explain certain words and give us simpler meaning to them. So those that are confused by these terms and definitions can more easily follow along. The narrative spine is when the Wall Street mastermind Michael Burry realizes that a large number of subprime home loans are in danger of defaulting. This means is that they're getting a good rating, but it's creating a bubble, which creates an inflation, which he notices. Burry then bets against the housing market by putting over $1 billion of investors' money into credit default swaps. This means he's basically buying mortgage and housing loans through Wall Street, but if these go down or crash at any point, he'll get all of his money back tenfold. Doing these actions attracts the attention of the banker Jared Venet. He is a hedge fund specialist Mark Baum, and other greedy bankers and other businessmen looking to make quick cash. Together, these men use the corruption of the banking system and take advantage of the impending economic collapse of America. There are 4 viewpoints in this film that are very similar to the book. Michael Burry, which I introduced before, always thought that he was different. When he was very young, he developed a cancerous tumor that occurred in his left eye, which then he lost his left eye. So then he started to feel different and separated from that. This really drove him to pursue that, and he always found himself almost above others and did things on his own that he never asked permission to do. However, he was very passionate about personal honesty, and it went in par with his wanting of fairness. Greg Littman, which is his name in the book, but in the movie, his name is Jared Venet. He's a very spontaneous and animated man who can spring up at any moment. He uses a lot of loud terms and says outrageous things without thinking sometimes, but he always sends a cryptic message whenever he's talking to somebody by saying how much money he makes and trying to compare himself to people. Ben Hockett, but in the movie he's known as Bennett Rickard, spent 9 years buying and selling and trading derivatives for the I don't know how to say the word, I'm sorry, Deutsche Bank in Tokyo. He really wanted to drop out of this because he felt it was unfair. And when his bosses wanted him to state his grievances, he was very truthful and very straightforward. He didn't like the office, he didn't like to wear a suit, and he did not like to live in the big city. They said fine. They let him do whatever he wanted to as long as he worked for the same thing. The reason that they did this is because he is a very, very smart man, and he made them a lot of money. So they wanted to keep him along, so they kept making money off of him. Steven Eisman, but in the movie he is referred to as Mark Ball. He is a very old-fashioned investor man, and he has these old-fashioned investor values, and he tries to go by the people, for the people. And he was told at a very young age the only way to make it big is to go into Wall Street and to become an equity analyst. And those are people who give ratings to stocks, who basically say, like, this is the best stock to get right now, this is the best thing to buy right now. He became one of the few in the market whose opinion alone can shake the very foundation of the open market. Because he spoke with purpose, he kept on topic, and he stated his clear intentions, and people knew what he said was true and what happened. Continue.
So, I want to talk about a little bit the cinematography that's in The Big Short. There was a lot of acclaim for the cinematography in this movie. There was a lot of zooming in and out, a lot of rack focus, a lot of unfocused shots that really help add to the whole encompassing feeling of the movie, the instability that's there, the tension between all the people. There are also times where the scenes transition and cut actors off in mid-sentence or cut off just a little bit too soon. Helps show the speed at which the times are moving. A lot of all these things help pull the attention of the audience. It helps them stay engaged. They want to take action on it. There's a lot of fourth wall breaking moments, like Jack was saying, where there's these cutaways with celebrities explaining things. It happens consistently throughout the movie, and they stop, they tell the audience, and the stopping with the cutaways helps show the audience that they're watching a movie. They remind them they're watching a movie, an attempt to stop that kind of passive mindset where you're just sitting there, you're watching the movie, you're going along with it, yeah, that's right, yeah, that's okay. There's even a point where a cutaway happens and the character talking tells you that the scene you just watched didn't actually happen that way. They had to over-dramatize it to not make an overly boring scene. The director also helped use these cutaways as a way to, not just the cutaways, but the overall themes of this financial crisis and how things can affect you in the real world, to help the pop culture, the youth, help make them think about taking action on these things instead of just sitting there and letting life happen to them. Again, the shots really helped drive that feeling home. There was a lot of zooming in and out. A lot of these didn't really follow any classical structure, and that really helped drive home that emotional tone and the importance to the audience. Again, making them actively want to feel engaged with any kind of situations like this that might be happening in their time, not just to passively sit by and allow these things to happen.
as for how this movie was translated from the book to the movie, the book again by Michael Lewis, it was done almost exactly how things were portrayed from the book. Both forms of The Big Short make the 2008 stock market crash understandable for the average person. It is simplified and straightforward, and it is done so in a comedic way, another thing that they both have in common. The acting was quoted by Michael Lewis as spot on, all the way down to the way the actor's hair almost being exactly like the real-world counterparts. Christian Bale's clothes are actually Michael Burry's clothes. When he had visited the real Burry for research on his character, Bale asked Burry for his clothes, and that was what you see him wearing in the film, as depicted by his hair and a plain blue t-shirt that he wore in the film. Both the book and the movie make the viewer root for essentially the bad guys who are literally betting on the housing stock market and the rest of the market failing and crashing, and they would make a ton of money. Both forms of The Big Short portray these who caught the housing bubble and planned against it as oddballs and outsiders, just like how they actually were in real life. Literally, two of the people that had caught the housing bubble were college graduates. They were like 23, 24 years old, and they had just started a hedge fund where they had $110,000 that they had gotten from like one of the guy's part-time jobs, and they turned that around in 4 years to $30 million, and that's when they bumped that $30 million bet on this, and they made, I think, $150 million. And that same hedge fund company is still going today. The comedy is similar in between the book and the movie, and both forms of The Big Short are confusing, and you may not understand fully everything the first time you watch it, even with how they explain everything, because the way that the housing market was made prior to 2008 was supposed to be confusing, because it was highly illegal with what they were doing, and the way that they bribed the rating companies to give all these bankers CDOs, which is collateralized debt obligations, made them give them really high ratings even though their ratings sucked ass, and that's why eventually everything crashed in 2007 when their time was up, resulting in the stock market crash. Since the movie, which was based on a book that was based on events that happened in real life, there really wasn't much need to deviate from what the book had said, but there are still some differences. The names of most of the main characters, excluding Dr. Burry, were changed from the real names, as they were mentioned before earlier in the PowerPoint. The book goes more into depth about how collateralized debt obligations, CDOs, that's what they're acronym to, and SCDOs, or I believe it stands for pseudonym CDOs, are made. And the movie shortens the explanations down of these complicated things by using celebrity cameos to explain them more simply, which is not done in the book. For example, they take Selena Gomez and some other, I don't remember if he was a doctor or another hedge fund manager, but they're literally sitting at a casino table and they're explaining how a CDO and a pseudo CDO are made. And although if you were to look at it from not knowing anything from bank, watching that makes it extremely simplified and pretty much anyone could understand it. Also, some scenes were subjected to Hollywoodism and were dramatized, such as when a broker deal was done in a strip club. In the book, there were words mentioning like a strip club, but it wasn't like literary, it was more of a metaphorical type of thing. But they took that metaphor and that same line from the book and applied it to a strip club scene. And although the movie does do a good job of like, hey, this didn't actually happen, we filmed it so it was less boring, or we filmed it this way so that way it flowed with the movie more. That was one of the scenes that was not done so in that manner. And that's it for, that's some of our work side.
That's a questions or comments?
Yes.
Would you say overall that it was faithful to the tone of the book?
I would say so. The author of the book, Michael Lewis, in one of the articles I read, I believe it was for Vogue magazine, he said that Andrew McKay was probably one of the best directors to turn his book into a movie because he understood his comedy, he understood how how he wrote the book and his feelings and emotions that were put into it, and that he would make a good movie as a result from that. So I think it portrays the book pretty well.
I have a comment.
Yes.
I'm starting to understand why sometimes it seems like people forget skill sets between classes. I think it's because sometimes people don't know how to research.